I'll be showing a problem in which fractions will be added with the area model. Before I begin, I want to address a few student misconceptions. So the first one is that students often show misconceptions area due to a lack of understanding how representation models are intended to be used, which leads to errors. One mathematical reason why students might have this misconception is because their lack of proper instruction on these mathematical representation models. Teachers can help students overcome these misconceptions by providing them with excellent examples and many opportunities to learn how to properly use representation models to solve their mathematical problems. And I'm hoping to solve this misconception today by using an area model and thoroughly teaching a student how to add fractions with unlike denominators with the area model. Our word problem that we're using today is Sally is baking cookies for her class bake sale. The recipe calls for 3/4 cups of whole milk and 2/3 cups of skim milk. How many total cups of milk are being used? So before we start, let's talk about some connections that we see within our word problem. So first, in order to solve this problem, students must be able to use addition to compare their fractions. They will use the operation of addition to figure out the difference between the original amount, which is the starting fraction, and the added part, which is the second fraction. So but for this one, it's going to be our 3/4 cup of milk and our 2/3 cup of milk. Another connection that you could see is through this equation, students will be able to compare the numbers that are being used within the equation. By comparing the numbers, students can see the inverse relationship between addition and subtraction. A last connection is that you need to use whole numbers and comparing numbers in order to find what the common unit is. When working with fractions, students must be able to use the same unit or denominator in order to solve the problem. Let's start solving our problem. So I went ahead and write down here our variables that we already have, and that's 3/4 cup of whole milk plus 2/3 cup of skim milk equals, and we're trying to find what it equals. So what I wanted to use here was an area model, and by an area model, we are going to visually represent what each fraction are and be able to add them together, even though they have unlike denominators. So I'm going to start out by creating two rectangles. In between the two rectangles, I put an addition sign, and then at the end, I put an equal sign. So with our first rectangle over here, it's going to represent our 3/4 cup of whole milk. So I'm going to section this off into 4 parts. And now we have 3/4, which represent our whole, which is our 4. And I'm going to go ahead and color the 3/4, which is representing our 3, or our numerator, in this problem. Okay, and so for our next rectangle over here, that's going to represent our 3 parts, which is our denominator of the 2/3. So that's our whole for the skim milk. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to color 2 sections of this one. Okay. Now you might be asking yourself, how am I going to add it when they have unlike denominators? And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to find a like denominator. So therefore, we're going to split our first one, since it's split into 4ths, we're going to go ahead and split it again into 1/3. And then we'll do the same thing to this rectangle. We're going to go ahead and split it into 4ths, like the other rectangle. Now they have like denominators of 12. 12 means that they can divide into both numbers on the bottom. So now we're ready to add them. Our area models to represent each number in the equation. It's time for us to solve it. So what we can do is we can go ahead and see that 9/12 is equivalent to 3/4. So we can color in 9. And so then we can go ahead and mark this off because we've already colored our 9. And now we need to color in our 8/12, which represents 2/3. And it looks like we only have 3 spaces here. So we can go ahead and mark off 3, and we can color them in. And so this represents 12 out of 12, which also represents 1. So we know we have 1. And then we have to count how many we have left over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means we have 1 and then 5/12 is our answer. And the reason why we got 5/12 is because we have 5 remaining left over. And so if we drew another area model over here to show the remainders, we would be able to draw in our remainders, which is 5 green, and that is our answer. And so this model is super important because it helps students find the common denominator by using a representation model.